to get a little bit more energy tonight? Because I need you guys to ask many questions to get as many answers as you need tonight. So I need you to get this energy level up. Everybody good tonight? Yeah. All right. Well, look, guys, thanks for coming out. The issue and information about from seed tonight is very important. For those of you, it's about the water level that's been rising and what the effect of it can have on where you live. So we wanted to make sure that the shoreline runs north to south. We wanted to make sure that the issues on the south end were being heard and addressed. So we have a host of people who are experts. And first of all, they're gracious, and we appreciate them coming out tonight. So I'm going to let you know who we have here tonight, and then I'm going to hand it over to the person who will help facilitate it from there. But at the end, we're going to allow enough time so you can ask as many questions and get as many answers as possible. So I need everybody to engage. Obviously, after tonight, you can still contact my office, but know that I'm not the expert. Okay? They are. So while we have them here tonight, I want you to make sure you take advantage of that. And then anything after that, we'll make sure. I'm always going to be in contact with them, and we'll make sure that any of the subsequent questions or issues, you guys have access. So we have CDOT Vasil Yerka, who is one of the engineers. We have Sarah White from Chicago Park District. We have Vanessa Valeriel from U.S. Corps of Army Engineers. We have Robin Kelly's office, Representative Rick Kelly. So that's on another note for the political issues. Make sure you go to him, just like you guys come to me. And from the Department of Water Management, we have John Gallagher in the back with Robert Woodbridge, Matt Quinn, and also from the Army Corps of Engineers, we have Felicia Kurtzer. So now I'm going to hand it over to Heather Gleason from the Park District, who will take it from here.
Thank you, Alderman. As the Alderman mentioned, my name is Heather Gleason. I'm the Director of Planning and Construction for the Chicago Park District, and we really want to thank the Alderman for the opportunity to come talk to all of you tonight. We know that the high water levels have been a source of stress for our residents, and we have been out doing these community forums where we're answering questions and trying to provide information. And we really want to stress tonight that this is the beginning of a dialogue. So we're going to be back here talking with you as we learn more, do some of the studies that we're going to share with you this evening. So we're really happy to be here. And the structure that we're going to follow tonight is that we're going to have basically three main presenters. The Army Corps, CDOT, and myself talking about what our different agencies are doing. And some of what we're going to be talking about is what's happening, why are the lake levels high. CDOT is also going to explain what happened when this happened last time, back in the late 1980s, and how the city and the Park District and the other agencies handled the issue back then, and kind of how we're looking at it now and what we need to do going forward. And then from the Park District side, I'm going to talk about a lakefront strategic action plan that we just launched this fall. That we're definitely looking at a multi-phased effort, which is why we'll be coming back to you over time, giving you more information, getting more information from all of you. But this is really the first kickoff to hear what your concerns are. And that's kind of where I want to end it before we start the presentations. You are the boots on the ground. So we are out doing inspections. When we get calls, we go and check things out. But you are all living with this situation every day. And your input to this process is so critical and important. So because we can't be here every 5 minutes, and a lot of you are, everything that you're experiencing, we want to hear about it, we want to understand what issues you're seeing, so that we can help address some of these issues that we're seeing along the lakefront. So at the end of this, I think the Alderman's going to have us do a healthy Q&A session. And one more thing I just want to mention, so at the very end of the Park District's presentation, we want to share some drone footage of the 7th Ward that we captured this summer. So we flew drones up and down the lakefront at late August timeframe. We're still editing some portions of the video, but we wanted to show you kind of what we had this evening. And so at the very end of our presentation, we'll show you kind of what that edge of the lakefront looks like with drones flying from the lakeside looking towards the land. So without further ado, I'll introduce Felicia here to come to our first presentation. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Good evening, everyone. How are you doing today?
Good.
All right, I'm going to talk to you all about the bigger concept, what the great Great Lakes are doing and the Corps' role in moving forward with addressing the issues. So if you could go to the next slide, please. There are 5 Great Lakes in the system. They're all interconnected. The Corps monitors water levels. We've been gathering data for about 100 years. And we make forecasts and make predictions based upon what we see in the lake. So generally, the upper lakes, Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, and Lake Huron, we see them at the same elevation. And the lower lakes, Lake Ontario, and then going on to Lake Erie, are at lower elevations. So they're all systems, they're all working together, they're interconnected. And so what we see here in the Chicago area is not unique. We're seeing it all over the system. Next slide. When we talk about water levels, when we talk about the Great Lakes, we're not talking about how deep the lakes are. We're actually talking about how high they are above sea level. And you'll see that over time, the levels fluctuate. So if you look at the chart here, the red line represents the average. And the blue line represents the water level of Lake Michigan and Huron. And we say that because it's generally one lake because they're very connected. We notice that they change throughout the year based on a number of different factors. And although you think that humans can do things to impact Mother Nature, we can't do very much to impact the water levels. They are what they are. They're not likely to be changed by anything done by humans. And what we see is that typically they increase during the spring and we see a decline during the fall months. Next slide. This chart shows our actual water levels since late 2017 and then the projection going into the spring. So as I said, you see that in the spring months, you see that uptick on the red chart, red line, and then you see a slight decline as we enter the fall. However, this year, because of all the precipitation, all the snow and all the rain that we received earlier this year, we still see a little bit of an uptick going into the fall. Now, we're also seeing, as you see the red hashtag, as you move out toward the end of 2019 and early 2020, that we're approaching record high lake levels. So what we're expecting to see, that cone, is our range of projection. We're expecting to see continued highs over the next several months. Next slide. Excuse me. Now, as I said, there are several factors that impact what we see in terms of water levels. In the winter, we get snow, and as that snow melts, and we also have rains in the spring, the rainy season, those things increase the water levels. As we move into the summer months, we get the heat, we start to see evaporation, which causes a decline in the water levels under normal circumstances. But again, as I said, we've had a lot of rain this year, so we're continuing to see little upticks. Next slide. Now, the Corps has authority under the Flood Control and Coastal Emergencies Act, also known as Public Law 8499, to provide assistance. We provide 3 different types of assistance. Flood response, where we can supplement efforts undertaken by local and state agencies to flood fight, where we provide sandbags and other flood fighting measures. We have them staged all around the area so that in the event of an emergency, we can quickly disperse those resources out to the state and local agencies to provide that assistance. We also provide technical assistance where we take our engineers and our scientists. We can provide engineering guidance. We can go out and conduct site visits and conduct assessments of what we see and provide advice to local entities to make recommendations on how to address certain issues. And then also we can provide direct assistance The direct assistance is a lot harder to achieve because it has to be demonstrated that all of the other means of support have been exhausted. Next slide. So this summer, when we noticed that there was really an issue going on, we received a request for support from the Chicago Park District. We've also received requests from other communities throughout the area. And we've gone out and we've conducted several site visits with the Park District, with CDOT. And we've made some recommendations as to how temporary measures could be put in place to hold off any damage until a more permanent solution is identified. Some of those things that we've recommended include chain link fencing, jersey barriers, putting backfill and void spaces, and also providing plank protection. Yes, sir.
So Texas, is that where you visited?
Yes.
Certainly.
Okay, next slide. So as part of our partnership with the CDOT and Chicago Park District, we've been working the Chicago Shoreline Protection Project. And I believe Lucille will talk more about that. So I'll hand it over to Lucille now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vasir Yurka. I've been with the city for about 20 years now, and I can't believe we're here talking again about high lake levels. When I started 20 years ago, we had pretty high lake levels, then we had a period of pretty much drought when the lake levels dropped, and here we are talking about high lake levels again. I want to first call your attention to this flyer. Hopefully you saw it up front. This is a document that the city just put out. It's our extreme weather flooding preparedness. It's a useful guide to tell private owners what to do if they live near the lake, regarding how to respect their properties, to get work done around their properties, safety around the lakefront, and also marine safety. We encourage people to heed the warnings of public officials. Whenever you see our vehicles out there and our jersey barriers and our signs that block access to the lakefront, they're for a reason. And we want people to not fall in the lake and endanger themselves, and also the first responders. So I encourage you to pick this flyer up for you. Very good information. So I like to show these photos when I begin, because these are from 1987, the last time we had lake levels this high. And so this shows the power of the lake. That's right in front of Oak Street Beach, between Oak Street and North Avenue. This is the Oak Street curve, this is the south side. We are in the same condition with the lake as we were back in 1987. That's a bit frightening from the emergency response point of view. Next slide. This is probably the most famous photo of that storm from February of '87. The entire Lakeshore Drive was flooded, all lanes across, even the frontage roads. And given that it's February, likely it turned from a bathtub to a skating rink pretty fast. Next slide, please. However, this level of system-wide damage is not likely to occur anymore to the level that it did back then, simply because we now have the Chicago Shoreline Protection Project. And this federal project authorized us to protect Lakeshore Drive from storm damage, but it also had other ancillary benefits that we were able to protect our infrastructure as well, Park District and city given infrastructure. So what we've done to date is we're constructing about 9.2 miles of shoreline revetment from about Montrose to 57th Street, but we also worked at 63rd Street Beach and Casino Pier, and also at the South Water Purification Plant. And the kind of structures that we're building are those concrete stair-step abutment with the steel shipwide in front. Those are a very robust solution. And also we also built beaches, like the beach at 31st Street that we tripled in size, or the new beach at Oakwood at 39th Street that we built 7 or 8 years ago. Those beaches, while they provide amenities, they also provide flood protection. But we know there are two areas to go that we have to discuss as far as comparing with the current shoreline project. One of them is between 45th and 51st Street. We call that the Lower Shoal area because of the preponderance of shoals in that area. And then also Promontory Point, which has its own issues because it's on the National Register of Historic Places, and we need an independent third-party study that we're working with the community and Army Corps to get that done hopefully soon. So you can see the amount of investment to date on the project in the Chicagoland area is upwards of $500 million. So keep that in mind when we talk about the next level of shoreline study that needs to happen. We're done with the first 9 miles, we'd like to do 9 more. So we're requesting the Army Corps to get funding from the federal government. We need $1.5 million to complete the study, and we would also pitch in $1.5 million to buttress that study and then look at the next 9 miles that are not covered under this program. Next slide. So these are the areas that were done. They go up and down the lakefront, from, like I said, from Montrose all the way to the South Water Purification Plant, and you can see that there are 2 colors there. So the ones in blue are constructed by the city in partnership, and the ones in red are by the Army Corps. It's important to note that these segments are so well built that we have not had any issues with them after the recent storms that we've had, the Halloween and the Veterans Day storm. They are designed per federal guidelines, standards I should say, and also have a 50-year design life, so they're very robust structures. Next slide please. But however, there's still some areas that are needed, that are going to be of concern this coming season. Specifically around 49th and 50th Street. There are areas that are in the project that need to be taken care of, like Morgan Shoal and Promontory Point, and other areas that are not even in the current project that we need to be aware of for the upcoming season. So the city has activated its emergency response plan. That means a heightened state of awareness and readiness by all our departments, whether it's OEMC, CDOT, fire, police, park district, streets and sand, water management, all the responding agencies. We discuss things on a as-needed basis, prior to storms, during storms, and after storms. We inspect the areas along the lakefront that we know are threatened during the storms and also the post-storm damage inspections. So one of the first things we did is we know that some of the areas are threatened but not yet built, so what we did is we put a Jersey barrier wall. This is the first location we did around 49th Street. We did about 800 feet of barrier. Next slide. We also learned a lesson from the Veterans Day storm. After a post-storm inspection, we noticed that this area also had a Jersey barrier at 67th Street, so we added about 200 feet of barrier. Next slide. And then at 75th Street, you know, the bus turnaround historically flooded back in 1987, and so we added about 100 feet of Jersey barrier there as well. Next slide, please. But there are also some more immediate areas that need to be addressed, and Jersey barrier are not the solution. This is the one at Morgan Shoal between 49th and 51st Street, roughly. So what you see here is a failed promenade with all the fill behind it has gone away, so the promenade itself has collapsed. Next slide, please. Also, you see some tumbled stones in, and also more erosion in the back shore and failed promenade. Next slide. We also see active erosion. It's kind of hard to notice because it's a frozen day, there's ice all over the place, but there's active erosion happening. It's already touching the trail here. Next slide. Also, it's hard to see, it's kind of whitewashed, but there's a debris field that the lake throws debris all over the paths, and Park District has to clean up after every event. In fact, they've closed the trail and other areas around here with chain link fence that you see in the background for public safety reasons. So we're working with the Army Corps right now to activate a very quick response, immediate stabilization project that we're hoping to start hopefully in about a month. We're currently in design right now, and the solution here is to look at all the areas that are at most damaged, most erosion, and add riprap stone like you see us doing up around the lakefront to at least stop the immediate erosion. So we're hoping to start construction in early January and hopefully last for about 2 months. So with that, I'd like to turn over to Heather Gleason. Thank you.
So I think you're probably hearing from all of us that one of the things we also want to stress to everyone tonight is that all of us as agencies, even though we might be federal and state and local, are working together to try to match up our individual programs and what we can each do to contribute to fixing the problem. It is a long-term, complicated challenge. I think as you just heard from Vasile, when we had to tackle this in the 80s, the last time we had really high lake levels, you saw those points along the shoreline that he was showing that the original Chicago Shoreline Project was instituted, but it took 10 to 15 years to get all those sites repaired. Some of that is due to the high dollar amounts that he mentioned to you. So that, $500 million is really beyond any individual agency's ability to pull out of their budget any one year. So we really do have to combine all of our resources. And that's why we're really grateful that our congressional representatives and our state representatives are becoming aware of this problem and helping us, because we're definitely going to need some federal and state probably funding to help us do these projects. What you see on the screen here is something that we just announced this week. This is Jackson Park Harbor. I apologize, this is kind of an engineering drawing, so it might be a little hard to see. But essentially it shows the outer harbor of Jackson Park there. And there are these two lines, thank you, Vasile. So those two lines represent 180 feet of breakwater on sort of the most eastern edge there, and 100-foot breakwater just to the west of it there. This has just been submitted by the Chicago Park District to the Army Corps for permit review. So whenever you're doing work around the harbors, the Army Corps has to permit the project. So it is not ready to go yet, and they may have comments for us. So this is pretty preliminary. I don't want to put pressure on my Army Corps friends here tonight. But we wanted to share it with you to explain some of the potential solutions that we'll be looking at as we go forward from the Park District perspective. So some of the problems that Jackson Park Outer Harbor has had is that because the mouth of the harbor is not protected, we get a couple different problems. The big waves with the high lake levels are causing a ton of erosion along the shore edge. So if you go there today, I don't know how many people might have been out there recently, but you'll see quite a lot of damage. A lot of it's underwater. And there are pieces in front of the Coast Guard building that's on that western edge there where the concrete's broken up and things. And that's due to the really high lake levels and the pounding waves that the harbor is getting. And then on the other end, on the side that's closer to Marquette there, we're also seeing some erosion along that edge that's getting really close to the pedestrian and bike trail. So by putting the breakwaters in, what we're hoping is that that breaks up the wave action, and so it mitigates kind of that pounding wave action within the harbor. And the other thing that it does is it stops a little bit of the sedimentation that goes into the harbor that then makes it shallower and harder for boat travel. So again, this is really preliminary. We just submitted it to the Corps. We owe them a bunch more information before that we'd be able to do it. We would love to be able to start this project in the spring. We'll just kind of have to see how the permit process goes. If Sarah can go to the next slide. So the other thing that we wanted to share from the Park District's perspective, I mentioned at the very beginning that we have what we're calling the Lakefront Strategic Action Plan. It actually has a longer title, but I can't say the whole thing. And really what it is we launched it in the fall. We hired a group of consultants to help us. And it's going all the way from the border at Evanston, all the way to the border in Indiana and the Chicago shoreline. And the idea is that we're going to be doing an inventory analysis in phase 1, which is what you're seeing here up on the screen. And then we're also looking at key opportunity sites. So some of the sites that we've already mentioned this evening are part of that study that the Park District is doing, and we're communicating all those findings to our partners so that we can join together and really work on getting shoreline solutions. And then obviously coming out and talking to all of you about what our findings are. So we are just starting this process, and in a second I'm going to have Sarah do some drone footage for you so you can see what we shot along the 7th Ward shoreline in August. So the second part of the study is really going to focus on the bigger issues, which is we need some detailed drawings of solutions that come out of the study, and then we really need some help finding funding. So how can we best position all of our agencies to take advantage of all the different programs, federal, state, local, in order to fund these longer-term solutions that we know we're going to need to really protect the shoreline? And then really just identifying any kind of partnerships that we might not know about. So our consultants are doing that. And then the last thing, it's not up here, but also helping us untangle some of the jurisdictional issues along the lakefront. So you just heard from 3 agencies that work on the shoreline. There's a lot more. Coast Guard, you guys can probably name a lot more than I can, but that's part of what we're doing as well, is who owns what, who's responsible for what. So with that, Sarah, I'm going to turn this over to you, and we're going to show you drone footage.
Thanks, Heather. Just give me 1 minute to tee this up. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is Sarah White. I'm with the Park District. And as Heather mentioned, I'm going to start walking us through this hot-off-the-press drone footage of the 7th Ward. So, as Heather mentioned, I think earlier, as part of our Lakefront Strategic Plan, we engaged the help of some drone pilots in late August to fly the entire shoreline. So this represents kind of a highlight reel of the 7th Ward, and we're starting at the very southern edge of South Shore Country Club here and moving southward, the 7100 through 7400 block. This area of the shoreline is mostly abutted by private property. There are a couple of street ends in Arthur Ashe Beach here. And you can observe, this was August, so we did observe some damage at that time, of course, but after the fall storms, some of the erosions escalated. So you may observe a different scenario today than is shown in this footage. So this is footage of many of the private properties in the 7th Ward. This is Arthur Ashe Beach. Arthur Ashe Beach is generally in pretty fair shape, although we have been noticing some pockets of erosion behind some of the concrete structures. Some more private residences in 7400 to 7500 block. We've heard from folks on the north and the south side that people that had large beaches in the past have really lost a lot of that sandy real estate. That shows up here, I think. Now we're heading south towards Rainbow Beach, so you can see this breakwater structure here that's helping support that area of land. We haven't heard too many complaints of damage at Rainbow Beach. We understand that it's fairly well protected. Sorry? Oh, well, no, we're here to hear it. So we're here tonight. So if there's something we're missing, we're absolutely open to hearing that. This is a 60-acre park. We have a 9-acre natural area at the south end. We've heard from our natural area staff that they have seen some erosion at the natural area site. But generally, this park itself is holding up a little bit better than some of the others that we've seen. Another fun fact that we learned this week, this is one of the best beaches for water quality of all the Park District beaches. Best beaches for water quality. Here's the breakwater at the south edge. This is footage of the entrance of our water plant. This is the land edge. Looking north, I believe.
Will this footage be online?
We are going to make this footage publicly available. It's not quite yet because we're still making the final. Yeah, the files are gigantic, so we're processing.
I want to mention that this area has added protection. This is part of the shoreline project that we built back in 1997. Yeah, so the soil path has some protection that was provided by the shoreline project to onshore wetlands, and the big breakwater, the chevron-shaped breakwater in front of that, is actively operated and maintained by the water department. We joined them on a biannual inspection of the breakwater.
Thanks, Cecile. I have in my notes here that this breakwater is 30 feet tall, and each stone approaches approximately 20 tons. So they're gigantic stones.
Do you know where the stones came from?
Journey from Manitowoc, from the quarries in Manitowoc.
And is that a model to kind of replicate in other areas, or?
Yeah, onshore and offshore breakwaters are good ways to protect the shoreline and also create buffers to break the waves before it gets to the shoreline, and also to tow in sand. So when you have a breakwater in front, like you see some beaches, sometimes you just see the shadow of the water because it's underwater. But we use that to break some of the waves up, and also create a quiet zone for beach cells. So then we fill that with sand, and we make the beach. So those are good options for creating quiet zones. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vasila. And Sarah, do you still have a little more?
Well, yeah, I was just going to mention. I was just going to mention 79th Street Beach. This is a passive beach at kind of the south end of the ward, and it's currently undergoing a natural area restoration. But we'd love to hear any comments about this property as well. We haven't heard too much about damage related to highway flows. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. So as you heard Sarah say, we're still editing this with our consulting team. They actually captured 2 days worth of footage, which we did not expect it to take that long. And so we're trying to get it into editable chunks. And you can kind of tell the camera or the drone sort of, jerks this way and that. So we're trying to clean it up so that people can actually have a good way of understanding how the video is proceeding. So as soon as we have that, we'll be happy to share it with the Alderman and put it publicly either on our website or find somebody to get it to you. But the files are large as well, so we're working through some technical details. But this is just the first part of what we've done under our Lakeshore Strategic Action Plan. And one of the reasons that we wanted to use drones was when we do our inspections, we do them in boats, but we also a lot of the time just walk up and down the shoreline to see where the erosion is. The drone really gets up above that level, so I think they're flying 25, 50 feet. Does that sound about right, Sarah? Yep. And so they're really up at an angle that we don't have that perspective normally, and so that's partly why we want to share it with you too, because you can really kind of get in there and see where some of these erosion issues are happening, and see some of the structures that were put in the past and how they're holding up. Are they doing their jobs? Are they buried in water? You can see some of the breakwaters. In years past, it was probably several feet of rock and then hitting water, and a lot of them are overtopping with waves. You can kind of see that in the video. So those are some of the reasons that we wanted to show the video. So next steps with our shoreline, we are working with other agencies and getting feedback. Obviously, we're coming out to the community to hear what things you're experiencing in this area that we want to make sure we capture and then go out and take a look at and inspect. And then we hope that we'll have more community meetings into early 2020, probably the spring.
The last thing I want to mention that I don't think that we mentioned yet is our study. So we're doing a study kind of in parallel with the Army Corps getting started on some bigger studies, and a major objective of what we're doing is trying to get ahead of some of the data collection and information that the Corps needs, so when they do get started, they can move a little faster.
That is a very important point. It's a little confusing when you first start hearing about all these programs, so I'm really glad Sarah brought that up. It seems like they're a little disjointed, but we actually are really working together, and because we all have different mandates and laws and ordinances that we're working under, we're trying to position ourselves to really put us in the best possible place to get funding to be able to do the projects that Vasila was mentioning that we did in the 80s and the 90s to protect the shore. So a lot of the data that we're collecting, we're looking at socioeconomic factors, we're looking at what ecology in these areas are, what protected species might be impacted, how residents are impacted, trails, parks, all those things we're taking into account to help us get to that point. At this point, we're done with our presentations, so I don't know, Alderman, if you want to start Q&A, or if you want to we can take questions from the floor and start from there. Yes, sir.
My name is Warren.
I think there's a microphone here, if you want, just so that other people, did you want to say anything, Alderman?
No, I don't have much time to answer questions. So yeah, I would say, for those of you who want to ask questions, go ahead and line up, and we'll do it from the front. Don't be shy, you ask these questions.
Of course I will. My name is Warren Daniels, and I live at 73rd and South Shore, 73rd and the lake. You just show what would be our beach itself. It's been washed away. So the August drone shot shows it in a lovely way. I just assume you take a shot of it now and you can see the impact of what the October or the late September storm and the November 11th storm, what they've done to the entire area. We showed a nice parking lot on the building next to us, 7251, I think is the address there. All of the wrought iron fence that they have protecting their parking lot, which was about 18 feet maybe above the water level, has been washed away and broken down as a result of it. The drone shot that you're showing is the 31st entry on the group of things that have been done in terms of lakefront renewal, starting up north, and everything was spent up north. That's why as you've gotten down here, the Army Corps of Engineer, Colonel Eisinger, I believe it is, he says he's out of money, so he can't do a study for this end. The $200,000 that this report covers for the south end is not available. The $600,000 that they got previously covered the north side, the mid side, and downtown, and the south loop area. As you've gone through, the gentleman from the city, as you've gone through the improvements that the city has done, you proved our point beyond a shadow of a doubt of why the 7th Ward and probably the 5th are so upset, because you spend all of the money every place else, and nobody bothered to come down here to see what our problems were, what we needed, what was happening. This isn't a last-minute thing. It's at a crisis stage right now, but the Army Corps of Engineers has been monitoring the Lake Michigan, Lake Huron basin for years. The global warming, the North Atlantic has been dumping down into Lake Superior. Lake Superior has been constantly rising. As Superior rises, it dumps down here. We're at the end of Lake Michigan, so there's no place for the water to go down here except to widen itself and to take out the land. So all of this preparation could have been done, should have been done, and maybe would have been done earlier on the south end of it if we had yelled a lot louder, a lot sooner. Well, when you go back to see the mayor, when you go back and see the president of the county board, so let them know that this end of the city ain't happy with them. Rick, when you go back and you talk with Robin, let her know we're not happy. She's been aware since September that we needed the money for the funding for the report to be done. Nothing has happened on that. This has been, let's placate them and pat them on the head. And as a result of action taken by Alderman Mitchell, we're not going to take it anymore. We want everybody to know that we're upset about this. We've talked to all of the people. We know who the players are. We've talked to them, and we've gotten just blown off about it. So this is the first step of us saying we need some action down here at this end. Thank you.
So if I may, just briefly, when we came up with the map is gone. When we came up with the site that needed to be reconstructed back in 1994 after the initial study was done, what we looked at is the worst 8 to 9 miles that we had money for to do. And those were the areas that you see. And they could go north side and south side all the way to the South Florida Beautification Plan, at 54th Street, 51st, and throughout. We're done with all those except for two segments. So we have been working on the south side and north side equally to do the work. So now that we're done, now we're asking for the study to cover the remaining areas. And that happens to be the 7th Ward, the 48th Ward, 49th Ward, all 4, 5, all the wards that have not been covered, because the initial study only covered the first 8, the remaining miles, and get that done as well.
And I would just add, thank you so much for your comments, and that's why we're here. We want to listen to what you're experiencing. It's really helpful what you told us about what you're seeing, that someone's fence, or gate had gotten knocked over by the waves of the October storm. So as you saw in our August footage, we know that we get bigger, stronger storms in the fall and the winter, so it's really helpful for us to know, because we can, share that with our partners and make sure that when we go out with the Army Corps, and do inspections, that we take all that into account. And so we're really grateful that you're here and telling us all these things, and that's why we're here listening tonight. We want to make sure that we capture all that information and that we're able to add it into, look, the folks in this area are experiencing all of this. We need federal help, we need state help. How do we get money to do those things? So thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Joyce Brown. I'm the condo board president right down the way, 7337 South Shore Drive. We were on your video, happy to see we're there. We have flooded now 3 times within the past 30 days. There's the water wall that separates us because we're right on the lake. Water's hitting up against our terrace. We actually have water that's going up over the wall, coming into our outdoor parking structure, and actually seeping into our garage. 3 times in the past month, we have had flooding of at least a foot or more in our garage, which is actually seeping into the building, into our storage area. What I'm not hearing, you said that you guys have walked the area. Has anybody knocked on anybody's doors? Has anybody gone to any of these lakefront properties to see exactly what's going on at our properties? Currently, and this is my property manager, Ernest Edinson, I'd like for him to brief you on where we are, because we're kind of taking it into our own hands to try to stop this problem. It's just a temporary fix because of, the rising water level, but we need help, and we need help now. I mean, 3 times within the past month, I almost foresee cars floating pretty soon in our garage. Can you brief them on where we are?
Well, we hired a structural engineer to kind of help us out here. The structural engineer wants to build an extension wall. The Army Corps of Engineers, from what I'm understanding, back in '87, they put up a wall maybe 10 feet. The water's coming way over that, okay? And not only is it going to the garage, it's water, it's sand and leaves and debris coming with it. So it's clogging up our drain lines. When it clogs up the drain lines, we get the flooding. The flooding is not just staying in the garage, it's going in our boiler room, shortening out our electric circuits. So that's becoming a big problem. The thing is, it takes so long to get the permits, to get the work done, to build this extension, that it's going to be winter soon. We cannot go into that ground in December without paying a high price to put footings in to build this structure. It's not going to happen this year as we wanted it to happen. But this is becoming quite costly to us. And it's
taking responsibility for that wall.
nobody. It's been three times in the last 30 days, but it happened before November. It happened in October. It happened in September. It happened in August.
It happened last year. I mean,
yeah,
we didn't just start trying to work on this. We've been trying to figure this out for the past 2 to 3 years. Nobody wants to take responsibility for what's there. I'm afraid to touch it because if anything happens to that wall, we cannot accept responsibility. But in the meantime, we're flooding.
So the Army Corps did have authority back in 1997 when they built these, what they call advanced measure projects, which they did put stone up and down the lakefront in strategic areas where it was needed. Sometimes abutting private properties. But that authority has expired and it's not being renewed at the federal level, so they cannot work on private properties. It's the same with the city as well. We cannot come and knock at your door and inspect your property because it's your property. We only inspect critical public infrastructure. So in that sense, every private owner is responsible for, you did the right thing to hire an engineer. If you put together plans for that kind of work, they have to come to us and the Army Corps for review. And we pledge to a quick expedited review of those plans because we understand how critical these areas are. So if you put together plans, please come to us for review and expediting that for permits.
well, we have the drawings.
Yes,
we have the drawings and we went through the city. But the problem is, even though this is very serious,
yes,
it's still taking the regular process to get the permits. We need help. We need to get those permits faster so we can start making these repairs a lot faster.
Yeah.
It seems like we should be able to get help from the city with that.
Yes, definitely. We commit to turning our plans as fast as possible because we understand how critical this area is. So maybe we should talk after some future contact.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Can you please make sure we get your contact
Yes.
information?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your graphs, but I have to say I had a little difficulty with seeing the numbers up there. And I had a question related to the heights. You tell us to expect an increase in water this spring. How much? That is, how much higher do you think the lake is going to be?
Go back to the chart.
How much higher do you think the lake is going to be?
So that's true.
The erosion in front of our place it's about a combination of the lake coming up higher clearly, but also loss of sand, probably lost 1.5 or 2 feet of sand. It's actually uncovered the old pilings of Manhattan Beach.
Where are you? Where is this location?
I'm just south of the cultural center.
Okay. So here's what happened. This chart represents the lake levels. This is the low, this is the average, I'm sorry. This line represents the average where we should be seasonally. And it goes up and down. It goes up in the summer because of the early spring rains, and then it declines to the winter as we get evaporation due to dry weather conditions in the dry air. So what happened was, but here is where we are. These dots here, these lines represent the all-time highs and the all-time lows. So what happened was, due to the amount of precipitation we've gotten in the entire basin, Lake Michigan, Huron Basin, over the last year or so, they've jumped up to a near record. We actually touched the record in June and July, as you can see here. We touched those two areas of 1986 where we had our highest levels then. So what the Corps does is it goes, well, okay, so looking at where we are now, we can anticipate a wet winter, which they have a high projection line, or a dry winter, which they have the low projection line. So I think this is critical because they're saying, even if we expect no rain at all, or no precipitation to increase the lake levels, this is the best scenario for the lake. But if I move this back to last year at this time, we're already about almost a half a foot to a foot higher than it was. So it's going to stay high. And I just saw, this is outdated by a month. The Army Corps just released the December report today, and have you read it? They've actually upped this line even more because they're saying even with a dry winter, we had so much rain in September, October, November that we think we're going to stay high, even higher than without November.
I just have one second question related to the first speaker spoke about the Superior spill. And I understand that there was a conscious decision to increase the spill out of Superior because of the lake levels they were experiencing. What's the balance? That is, how much control do we have over the lake? Since we're spilling more from Superior, are we emptying more through the St. Lawrence?
Yeah,
what's that balance?
I've heard that said before. And yeah, there are connected, obviously. All the lakes go down from one lake to the other until we get to the Niagara and St. Lawrence Lake. But what I looked at the charts because I wanted to make sure I understand exactly what's going on too. And looking at Lake Superior, as it went up and it went down, we also sort of went up and down too as well. So they're not dumping consciously. The lake levels in the Great Lakes are controlled by Supreme Court covenants and also our agreements. Decrees, and also our international agreement with Canada. So it's not something that we just throw water here and throw water there. It's very well controlled, these bodies of water. So.
Are they increasing the spill though from here on down?
No, it's
They're
not.
just letting us deal with the problem upstream. Is that?
No, this is due to all the precipitation we are all getting in all the 5 Great Lakes spaces.
Hi, I'm a scientist, and I live in 7337. I have family and friends that's in 7321. And the thing that I don't understand is the science behind it, not the technical. I'm just saying, why wasn't this done a long time ago? Because one, Lake Michigan has been here for hundreds of millions of years. The 7321 to 7337 has been here 70, 80 years. All these numbers, the data points, that could have been figured out long. I'm a gemologist, so I don't directly mineralogy, but the process of gemstones, erosion, this is not rocket science. This should have been figured out. Wind patterns, the height of the lake. We should have been working on this. Katrina happened in what, 2005? Water does not change. Chicago was water long before all this structure. So I'm a Marine, so I'm sure the Army is just as intelligent. They should have figured this out a long time ago. That's my question. Why is this the first meeting when you're talking about, well, we have to look at the study. This is not brand new. Illinois Ice Age, the water was coming. We all knew that. We learned that, I don't know, Biology 101. I teach that every day in CPS. Second question is, when you say private property and the way you said private property, that means, I'm from New York originally, that means you pay.
And I live on the side of the lake, 7320, where the residents of 7321 and 37, we hear the water every single night. And it's not just like bang, bang, it's boom, yeah, boom. And I'm sorry, water doesn't take that long. You're saying, oh, in a couple of years, Joyce Brown's talking about cars floating. No, we're talking buildings floating in a couple of years. So whatever studies were done before, can't we kind of put a fast forward on that? Because I understand the money. I do understand the money. But I don't know how many more studies that you have to have as far as beach erosion. It's going to happen. It's a guarantee. 10 years from now, either half the residents won't be here because the buildings that they used to live in no longer exist. And once it gets under the foundation of 7021, I literally saw from my window the way the Jersey blocks moving. And over 7337, we're not talking about just hitting the wall, we're talking at least 50 gallons of water hitting cars, hitting the concrete, where you can literally feel the vibrations of it. So we don't have, it's nice to say study, but as a scientist, someone who studies this, we don't have 4 or 5 years to study this. This should have been, this is DEFCON 1, 5-alarm fire now. That's all I want to say.
I'm approaching the mic, but the gentleman before me actually expressed a whole lot of what I wanted to say. I have none of the titles that he has, but I have common sense, which means that what he has stated is actually going to happen very soon. I live a block away on Coles. I don't own property, but I live within a residential building, and I do know a great part of this area, from what I've been told, State Street is covered with, it's on top of water. And the erosions that happen, I do know that they're going to eat away at surfaces, and it's like the gentleman stated, how long will it take before something is actually done, or a sinkhole develops and a whole bunch of buildings just go down within them along with cars? We don't have that time to, as he said, wait for the studies. We need more action, and we need it soon.
Thank you for your comment, and I do understand, I hear what you're saying. We have to operate within the authorities that are provided to us by Congress, and we also have to have funding to exercise those studies under those authorities. So unfortunately, until we get a combination of the funding and the authority to move forward, we can only come here today and say we're listening, we're gathering information, and I urge you to contact your representatives and urge them to provide the funding for us to move forward.
And who are those representatives in reference to this particular issue?
Well, that would be your congressional representatives.
Also,
because they're the ones who provide the funding to the federal government. Without that and without those authorities, we're very limited.
Also, will there be a distributing information on who to contact in reference to the private owners that do have immediate questions and immediate problems?
I believe that FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, may be able to provide you with some guidance as to how to address those private structures.
Okay, so are they here?
I don't believe
Was
so.
there a number that some of the people here are concerned about their property dilapidating, disappearing?
Yeah, we'll provide it to the Alderman's office.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Alan. I live along Rainbow Beach Park. The question I have is, we know a lot of the outlying suburbs have to use groundwater for, the drinking water. They are not allowed to use Lake Michigan water for drinking and other water usage. I was wondering whether some kind of a waiver process would be put in place, so when the lake level is above its average level, communities further out couldn't be able to use lake water during those times. That would potentially draw off more water and, help with the lake level. So that's basically my question. Any other quote diversion tactics that you might have in the, consideration?
Yeah, thanks for your question. I don't know that any of us up here could answer that question. I'm looking at my friends from water management in the back. I don't know if you heard the question. I think they're asking about the agreements that the city has for drinking water with the suburbs and whether or not that's having an impact on what we're seeing along the lakefronts, or if there's a way to address that. No, there's no, okay. All right, I think I understand your question. I think it was a good question. We've been getting a lot of different questions, somewhat like that. We had another one the other night when we were doing a presentation where people were wondering if we, open the locks and, send water through the Chicago lock, would that actually lower the lake level and help the shoreline? And what we heard, I think, from the Army Corps is they explained to us if we did that, we would flood the city along the edges, and that would actually cause a bigger problem. So we are definitely happy to answer those questions as best we can, but there are some challenges to addressing the problem. Yes, sir.
Well, I had two comments. One, is it working? I was surprised to hear the comment that we don't have any impact on the lake levels. When I've been reading reports that there's global warming, it affects the rainfall, it affects when the thaw happens in the watershed. And we all know we have a federal government that now is run by climate deniers. But I really think those of us who are reality-based and down here at the local levels and people who are scientific experts should not say that these radical changes in climate are beyond human control, because I think there's evidence that they are. Second, I want to really talk about with all respect, we love the fact that the Lakeshore Drive is being protected and that the parks, we use the bike path, no disrespect. However, there's a very acute and immediate crisis on a stretch of homes that starts from the South Shore Cultural Center and goes down past Rainbow Beach. I went out today into our backyard. The erosion had gone another 10 feet in the storm that happened a few days ago. So we are literally approaching our foundation. And I saw a slide up there that said, the Army Corps of Engineers has sandbags. There's permits needed for putting obstacles into the water in front of our house to lower the wage levels and their intensities. This is not something for discussion, long-term plans, let's meet in June, let's figure out what to have in a year. It's not hyperbole that he says some of these houses may not exist in a year. There's a need for immediate action before the winter storms come. This is December. We need action tomorrow, we need action within a week. We need sandbags, we need experts. We have engineers in our building that are examining it. We need expedition of Corps of Engineer requirements so these plans can be fast-tracked so that emergency measures can be taken before the winter storms within 2 weeks. So I appreciate the funding cycles, there are congressional processes. Somebody needs to declare an emergency and provide immediate emergency funding and resources, sandbags, buildings, giant blocks of concrete, right, in accordance with scientific engineering designs that need to be cooked up in a hurry and are already in the process. So I just feel like there's a massive disconnect between the pacing and the funding thoughts and the planning, which is fine. We need long-range planning. We all understand that. And then on this stretch, there are buildings that are now under threat for this month. And I don't feel like you've addressed that. And somebody needs to get up and say, we're going to come down, we have these supplies, trucks can be motivated, we can expedite these requirements, we can speed up that process. If we need 10 cement blocks in front of our house to cut down that booming, it sounds like a cannon. It hits in that corner, it's cracked a 1 yard wide, we have cracks in our seawall that you can now see through. It's going to destroy our building. So somebody needs to say how the emergency happens, what agency, what's the contact person, when they're coming to the building, who brings the trucks. You see what I'm saying? There's a whole other level of urgency that I don't feel like you're addressing or maybe not appreciating. And I thank you for being here.
We cannot work on private property. So again, private properties are responsible. Private property owners are responsible for their own property.
But we need your.
But we can't work on it either.
We need Army Corps of Engineer approval for
right.
putting cement blocks in there.
Yes.
So are these rules being do we have contact people for expediting the process, for making amendments, to getting short-term things, expertise?
Yes, if
right?
you have plans ready to submit to the
And you
Army
can't
Corps-
provide sandbags for private property?
No.
You know what I mean?
Unless it's FEMA.
What?
That would be FEMA.
They may be able to help.
Well, exactly. So then tell us who to go. You know, I've dealt with bureaucracy. We all have. The first thing they tell you is, well, it's not us. It's that guy over there. Just tell us who to go to and how to expedite this.
Right, for the private properties, FEMA will leave a contact with you. If you have permits that you've submitted to the Corps, if you have the permit numbers, give those to me and I'll follow up with those and we'll see if we can expedite the approval process.
Good. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Bill Alderman. I'm a South Shore resident, and I also work for the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. The Metropolitan Water Reclamation District is in charge of stormwater management for Cook County, which includes the lake. In fact, the Metropolitan Water Rec owns the lakefront from Indiana to Wisconsin, as per the state mandate back in the 1800s. A couple little old facts. The streets you're talking about right up here, actually, there's another street in the lake right now that went underwater. Yep, Lake Park is now underwater. Now, as far as funding, the Water Reclamation District issues grants constantly. I urge you to call the district tomorrow, get to the commissioners and say, we need the money. We gave $750,000 to the village of Arlington Heights to put a green roof on the police department. Yes. We get $50 million from the state for stormwater management. The money is there. You just have to get to them and make them do it. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for coming out. My name is Kevin Ryan. I'm the president of 7321 South Shore, right next door to where you already heard about 7337. And the building that you showed, that you said from 1987 was a picture from the south side, was the back of our two buildings. And the pictures that you showed from 49th Street of the collapsed concrete and the fill that's required is exactly what the waves have done to the terrace in the back of our building. But what I wanted to address is what we have hired an engineer, as 7337 has, to try to address our seawall issues and a way to break the waves before they get there. But we have been told by the engineers that the time period for the approval of the from Army Corps is going to be close to 4 months. And secondly, that we can't do anything that is more than about 5 feet out into the water, because that's navigable waters, even though, as the previous gentleman just said, it's actually Lake Park Avenue, and we own property that goes out 400 feet into the water, and actually have tax IDs into the lake. So I mean, we have property that's private property, as you keep saying, but we can't do anything with it because we're being told that Army Corps won't approve of us to put a breakwater out there, and that the only thing we can probably do is a seawall within a foot or two of our existing seawall. So that's what I would like some advice. I understand you're telling private property owners that they have to address it, but then we're also being told that what we want to do to address it can't be done. We're having the plans designed for the permit, but what we've been told by, and our engineers have been working with the Army Corps throughout as to what we could or could not do, and we have been told that we can't put a break wall or a seawall or breakwater out into the lake more than 4 or 5 feet, even though our property extends 400 feet into the lake.
Right, and I would assume that that's because of a federal regulation that's prohibiting that. The only thing I could suggest to you at that time is, to continue to engage with our regulatory office, and they'll work with your engineers to help develop a solution that will work for you.
I mean, I understand that you're saying that, but at the same time, what we're hearing is that the only thing that you can do is build a higher seawall. And I mean, that's not what the city is doing. That's not what the department or the Chicago Park District is doing. That's not what Army Corps of Engineers is recommending throughout its other 18 miles of lakefront. So I'm just amazed that those of us who have property, even though you can build out 100 feet into the lake, the private property owners can't do that.
Right, and unfortunately, again, I think it's just because of the regulations that are prohibiting that, because it's one thing for a government entity to do something. Unfortunately, those same rights are not afforded to private landowners.
Can you point us to the waivers?
Needs to be a disaster.
That you're citing? Can you point to the regulations?
I don't know it offhand. I'll try to get it and send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jean Bloom. I'm from 2666 East 73rd Street, and I have a couple of things. One is a technical thing. During one of the slides, it mentioned a rip-wrap replacement, and that's a technical term I'm not familiar with. What is it?
So riprap is stone that's about this big, 600 to 1,000 pounds.
And what do you do with that? I mean,
We place it to create, like you see the stone rubber mounted revetments that you see in some of the front of some of the properties or on the lakefront. We place that to stop the erosion from happening.
Okay, so that's called a riprap.
That's called riprap, yeah.
You mentioned Public Law 8499, where the Army Corps could get involved with the flood response. And it's obvious that there's a disconnect in these lovely long-term plans. If you come back to us and talk to us in the spring, once we make it through the next, 6-7 months, we'll all be, contributing. Right now, we're holding our breath because we're going to have a 1987 again here, because nothing has happened here, in the last 30 years to prevent that from happening. So has any consideration been given? The only thing that will stop it is if we have a hard, cold, freezing winter and get that ice barrier built up, and that's what happened in '87. It was a warm winter and everything flooded. Have the agencies coordinated for an emergency response plan? Because we're going to have an emergency down here. There's no doubt about it. I mean, just with the November storm. Oh, for the Park District, you're losing your golf course. There was that really nice picture of the drone, and that tree's gone. I mean, it's almost gone. So, have you talked interagency about how you're going to respond to this area when we have that storm and we're calling and the sub-basements are flooded, the elevators are out, the boilers are flooded, the parking garage is flooded, and they're pulling out those popsicle cars? That's going to be, we're stuck in between 10 years from now and the emergency that's pending, and it hasn't been triggered yet. What can we do?
Yeah, so we have activated our emergency response plan, and we work with OEMC, and if something, a disaster needs to happen, like it happened, that we need to evacuate people, we're ready to do that, or coordinate with all the agencies that need to provide assistance from the standpoint of clearing the streets, cleaning up and the inlets, catch basins, and things like that. So yeah, we are talking interagency almost on a daily basis.
Can you, as part of that emergency plan, there's something called HESCO bastions that they've been using for flood control along the Mississippi. They're putting them in New York for those places that were affected by Hurricane Sandy. They used them up in Fargo, North Dakota for flooding. They're better than sandbags. I mean, basically what they are is these huge things that, is that something that you guys have considered at all using in Chicago?
No, but again, we would use riprap because it's readily available and it works just the same.
But these are filled up, I mean, basically they're big mesh bags that you can fill with sand and rubble and stuff from the lake. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, it's a wonderful thing. Instead of using 1,000 sandbags, you use one of these big things. It's portable, it's removable, you can take them down. Is that something you would consider, like at the end of 73rd Street, it's a public street, all of that water, that debris, the sand keeps coming up?
Well, I've not looked at that sandbags for that area, so I'll look at it, but no, I've not used, we call it gabbing structure. We have not used gabbing in this area.
Yeah, because what happens now with the barriers, with the New Jersey barriers, is the water comes through, the sand comes through, and it goes and flows for a block down to South Shore Drive. And it gets about like 1.5 feet deep. You know, you've got to do something to block off those streets as far as what it's throwing up and blocking and it's constantly filling up the catch basins.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'll have to look at that because I've not seen that area.
Okay, thank you.
Before I speak, I want you to take a close look at the damage that Lake Michigan has caused to the property at 73rd and South Shore Drive. They've spoken on it eloquently. This is a problem. I'm going to take you back to the state. This nice gentleman showed the pictures of it. In 1987, the Army Corps of Engineers put boulders in the lake, which we know for a fact helped us for quite a few years to stave off the waves. I personally cannot figure out why it is totally our responsibility. Somebody controls or can change the flow or put boulders out to stop the waves from hitting us with such force. We need help. I didn't sit in here for your presentation, but I was at Bobby Rush's presentation December 2nd. And I heard the same information, and I hope at this point I hear you all say to us that there was something that you could do for us, that you can combine your efforts on a state level or city level. We need help, we need it immediately, but we cannot continue to have people say us that there's nothing to do, they're not responsible. I say all the time, Lakeshore, Michigan is not private property, but it's responsible for the destruction to our private property. Now, where we're not looking for you to repair the areas right outside our door, it's got to be expected that you do something to slow up the force of the waves coming in to the shoreline. So I need answers, and like I said, really hoping that we would get some here. We're all very frustrated. This has been an ongoing, I say to you that we survived the SACE of 87. So we've been watching our lakefront erode for a very long period of time. But now it has gotten to the fact that it is right out our back door. We have people's property underwater. We are under siege by Lakeshore, Michigan. And I'll further address the fact that it is doing damage to US 41. We are 47 feet from Lakeshore Drive. We have the sand that's taken from our beach which no longer exists, land on Lakeshore Drive, the water. We have buckling. We're waiting for any minute to have a crater that somebody's car falls in. I would think that it would be important that we don't have our highways stopped. It's been stopped any number of times. Traffic has to be diverted. What does it take to get some action for us?
Again, we need the authority of the study and the funding to go a little further beyond the point what we're doing today. But I want to stress again that we cannot work on private property for public works dollars.
But I say again, the lake is not private property. I felt the Army Corps of Engineers can divert the water, take it through channels. We have researched it, we found that it eventually dumps into points in Montreal and they won't allow the water to come in. So it has backed up and we're now faced with it. Now, I may not be saying that accurately but we've done thorough research and we've read it. And I just think it's a cop-out and an excuse to keep saying, oh, we can't do anything about it because our drought won't allow us to do anything about it, as we are about to fall into Lake Michigan. And it's just not right, and it's just not fair. We've paid to have these properties, certainly not with the understanding that in X amount of years we'd be faced with the fact that the lake is about to do us in, and we need. Carry the message for us. We have our state representatives and our aldermen, and we are forming coalitions around here because we are standing determined that something has to be done, and we can't wait for you to get a study or what. Somehow you have to cut through some of this red tape. So if there's a way that we're supposed to do it, then you have to provide it. Tell us something that will help us, because just saying, I can't do it because this isn't passed or that isn't passed, does not satisfy us in the least bit. We need some immediate answers, some direction, and hopefully you're in your positions because you do your job well. Help us correct our situation, and we need it immediately. Thank you.
I want to respond a little bit. So Basile and Felicia are correct in exactly what they're saying. We're the park district, we can only protect our public property. But I will say, and I know this is hard to hear, there are two sections of the city where you're experiencing private property problems, and that is Rogers Park and here. And the reason is there is no public land in front of your private buildings. If there was, we would be having a different conversation because we would be seeking out the same funding and all those other resources that we need. Hang on a second. Wait, I don't know how many years ago, but there were conversations about acquiring property in front of the private properties, and the homeowners pushed back and said they wanted to keep private beaches. It would be an extraordinary amount of money, and we would still have to go seek funding. But if the public agencies in the future were able to acquire the property in front of your properties and make it parkland, then we would have a little bit more leverage to protect the edge of the shoreline. And again, it's really in Rogers Park and here where this is an issue, because if you notice, the rest of the lakefront is publicly owned. So there was a study done many years ago. It was called The Last 4 Miles. It's actually down to 2 miles because we keep trying to acquire lakefront property where we can. But this is part of that area where it isn't publicly owned in front of your building. So I think that should be said because we are not trying to cop out. We're really being honest with you that that's not something that as public agencies we can take on, except to acquire property in front of your buildings and make it public.
Except the Army Corps of Engineers for the Thorndale Beach South Condominium Association, they built revetment blocks there, and they're now looking at replacing them because they've eroded. They also, for the Sheridan Condo Association, 1200 West Sheridan, they built, after the last stage, they built U.S. Army Corps of Engineers built a seawall during previous high lake levels as an advanced measure. Part of the seawall was deconstructed in the early 200s by the Condo Association. Army Corps of Engineers now deciding whether or not to replace the balance of the wall that was removed. That's Army Corps of Engineers going for private condo associations, exactly what the people at 7321, the people at 2666 people at 7251, that's what we're talking about. Already it has been done before. So when you say that there's no taking care of private money, I mean of private property, Rogers Park area, it has been done. If it's done in Rogers Park, how the hell can it be done in South Shore?
And I said that work was done in the late 80s, and since that time, our policies have changed, our authorities have changed, so we no longer have the ability to do that, unfortunately. And contrary to what you stated, we are not looking at replacing any of those things that are in private property.
On August 29th of 2019, in the report that Colonel Leisinger submitted to the city, it's on there. Go and look at your EOC sheet, the both of those. One is the first item on there, the other is the 29th item on there.
I'll look into it.
I have a question. So if you find out that that's true, that the Army Corps of Engineers on that special legislation, you know, that did the construction and everything, now has the ability to go in and maintain or upgrade what they already worked on, can that be done for 7321 and the seawall as far as increasing its height? I mean, does that establish precedent?
I don't know. I can't make that commitment at this particular time because I don't have all the facts.
So,
I'm sorry, yeah. My name is Julia Durbin. I'm at 7321. I'm in the building that my neighbors have been talking about, that the president of our board spoke about. I have a picture as well from today. It's terrifying. I don't want to, I'm not one hopefully to be hyperbolic, but I have to show it to you. It is a sinkhole. We're in a pre-disaster situation right now. This is every day. It's not just incremental. Now it's becoming devastatingly obvious that our building is under threat to fall down. It's terrifying. And so I think the question is, I understand the situation that you're in actually, and I really appreciate the fact that you've come here and you've given us information and you've shared with us what you do and the limits as well to what you do, which I completely understand. I think that I agree completely with the frustration that everyone else has, and I think that you're on the recipient end of it. But I think it is a larger picture because right now we have to define some next steps, and that's the thing that I get frustrated at when I've been involved in different civic opportunities in the past. In other activities that I've been involved with, you have a longer time frame. We don't have a time frame to deal with in this case. We are in a pre-disaster scenario, and I don't say that lightly. So I wonder, so I guess the question that I have is, one, these slideshows, which are incredibly helpful, it's very good, we need to get the word out. So I would love to get these slideshows from you and make sure that they're made readily available to as many people that we have. Two, I would really like a map of the organizations that are all involved with the name and number of whomever is the point person that's in charge. And that is not just the organizations that you represent. It's if you're coordinating with water reclamation, it's our esteemed representatives, whom I am very interested to hear from, to find out what is Alderman Mitchell, what is Representative Tarver, and others, what are they doing to go after the monies that we need. And I think, and then the last thing that I would like to kind of stress is, we have to form some type of coalition. We just have to. It doesn't have to be formalized, but it has to be something that is clear, because if, as you've said, we are the private owners, last 4 miles, last 2 miles, that's the way it is. It is what it is. We know that. But what do we do to gain the same leverage that the city has? That's our biggest distress at the moment. That's not something you can answer. I'm looking at my guys, Representative Tarver, and I'm sure that we will hear from that, but you're not going to solve that problem for us.
we have to have some degree of organization that's beyond the remit that you oversee. So that's basically mine. But I have to say, this is serious, and it's going to happen like now. It's happening.
So let me just answer your question. As you mentioned, going after funding. The first time that I heard about this issue, especially at this level, was when we had a meeting, we put together a task force. So unfortunately, that was 3 or 4 months after the state budget was passed in June, but certainly it's top of mind as we head back to Springfield in January.
Because we are talking disaster dollars before the disaster hits, and that's much cheaper than after it hits.
No, I understand, and I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm trying to tell you, the first time I heard about it, we really, jumped on it. We headed back January 28th. I had a couple of conversations with folks on the House side. The plan is to at least, at a minimum, draft a resolution to go to Governor Pritzker to urge him to do something about this. That's the first thing. The second thing is at the state level, we also have a subject matter hearing as well. I know we're here from the city. Thank you all. We're going to do something at the state level because, what I tend to see is that we all end up pointing at each other, right? Whether it's the city, the county, the state, the feds. And so the intention is to have a subject matter hearing at the state level as well to have the state against it while we haven't done anything today.
Well, I'd like to issue a challenge tonight that we don't have time to wait for an answer. We have to find out this week, next week. Not an answer to the funding, but what concrete pre-disaster plan is going to be proposed now. Because if we go beyond December, we may not have a building. That's something that I just want to put out there. So I think that I'd like to issue that challenge that what is the pre-disaster proposal that is going to be put together now before any other action takes place? That's what I hope for.
I didn't come up here to blow you guys up again. I appreciate it first time. And again, sorry for the little Army reference. You guys are all right too. I came here to sign up. Where do I sign up? Because I can fuss about it, but again, I'm a United States Marine. When do we get the job done today? I'm the first person, please, can I volunteer? Because I volunteer to fight all enemies, foreign and domestic, and the water, unfortunately, is our enemy. So where do I sign up? Because I believe that if I start using my voice and start knocking on doors, just like we have a couple of, maybe 100 people here, I think I get 400. I think I can get 1,000 by myself, and I know there's other people here that would join. This is the fight. This is the beginning. I tell my students, this is the beginning of the change of our earth, and it's happening. It's no longer just happening in Venice or wherever, in Istanbul. It's happening right now. So I just want to volunteer my time, my voice, to get your numbers. Where do we get the list? Challenge. I want to help in that challenge because I know you guys, our hands are tied. Let's do this the way that things have always been done in this country. Let's have hundreds of thousands of people coming to your office, and 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But with water buckets or whatever we have to do to get this done. Because from what I'm hearing from you guys, when you say private is your responsibility, okay, if it's our responsibility, just show us the direction of the battle, where the battle has to be fought. So my name is number 1, Barry Mixon, sign me up.
We, as engineers and planners and things like that, we implement policy. Policy makers make policy. So that's what I'm saying, is you have to reach out to your elected officials to change those policies. We only operate within those narrow confines of whatever policies we work with, whether it's Army Corps, politicians, or city, or WRB, and everybody. So
if thousands of people come to your policy makers, they will be here talking about money like this right now, right? That's what I'm understanding? No problem.
I would like to just correct one statement that is not true. The city does own property in front of the private properties that are along the lakefront. It's called Lake Park Avenue, and it's underwater. So you do own that property. It is yours. And 73rd Street is washing out right now, completely. It's underwater.
Yeah, 73rd I'll check, personally. However, yeah, we do know about Lake Park. the submerged right of way, 150 feet wide. We are aware of that, right?
My name is Sharon Lewis, and I live on the west side, and that's Louis. I live on the west side of South Shore Drive, directly across from 7337 and 7321. So I see the water coming up over their break walls, washing over the cars, as well as going down into their low-lying parking lot. And I empathize with them. But I've been complaining since 2011. I had a blog talking about what was going on Route 41, particularly the constant digging and disturbance of the roadway, which is causing soil erosion, which is also causing shifting of the water tables. And this helps to destabilize all of the structures. So that needs to be addressed as well. If you drive down Route 41, you will see it dipping and swaying. There have been times where there were craters big enough to put a mattress in. There's no coordination of the work being done. So they dig over and over again. The gas company, the light company, the cable company, and then the roads. Why isn't the work coordinated so there's not repeated destabilization when there's no proper restoration? They take out all the sand and they come back with dirt and gravel, and the ground shifts and you feel street vibrations constantly. That can't be helping those buildings as well.
Is that anyone? Can I say something? Can I say something?
I'm sorry, any other questions?
I don't know, I don't record.
I don't record myself, so I don't know what I'm recording now. I'm a little confused with this situation here. Do anybody remember the movie Dante Peak? It was a volcano that erupted, that happened. And I'm confused that you're using this private word, like, oh, it's private property, like something that's not happening that's gonna affect everybody in a domino effect at this moment. It's like saying, oh yeah, you got this volcano on your land, we can't, that's your problem, even though it's about to affect everybody inland too, if this go down. So I don't know if I'm talking to the right people here with this, but this is an emergency. So using the word private, I'm not getting that when it's an emergency. It's like having a hurricane sitting right there. I don't get that. Volunteering? Volunteering for what? This is an emergency. So I don't understand. I'm confused.
It is
any more questions, guys? So look, this is the first. Oh, you have one more question?
Can you do?
Since all of this seems to go back to the Army Corps of Engineers, since they seem to have the highest dominion from what I'm hearing over this, I have a question also. Recently I worked with a group in regard to the confined disposal facility that they have in the lake. And also the fact that they want to scrape the bottom of the river up in Lincoln Yards and bring that down and add it to the confined disposal facility when the water level is already high and it's getting higher and higher. And what I'm trying to find out is who are these people from the Army Corps of Engineers? Are they Americans? Why are they here to help us? I want to know because if everything is privately owned and people are saying they're suffering disasters and there's disasters moving everywhere and they're still bringing bad things to this end, who are these people? Are they here to help us or are they here to destroy us? That's what I want to know. It makes no sense.
It don't make no sense. I truly don't make no sense.
I am an American. Born and raised on the South Side. But to address your comment about the CDF, we are constructing the CDF to hold material that is dredged from the river, right? So we have to maintain the river at a certain level so that ships can pass through to deliver goods and all those things that we like to have. And in order to do that, we have to ensure that there is enough water in the river for those ships to pass through at their optimal load. So that's why we have to dredge and we put those material in the CDF.
But you don't have to put it in the CDF because the CDF is already not able to confine what it already has.
Right, it is reaching capacity, and we're currently completing a study that's looking at a number of alternatives to find out how to store that material.
But you guys study so much.
I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. You know, I have to get ready and go too, but
I promise you, I understand. I spent most of my whole life working in government. I know all about government and how they study stuff. But the point is, these people are saying that it's not about private property.
Exactly.
It's about loss for the city, loss for the people on South Shore Drive, because what affects 7337 and 7321 and 7251 is going to affect South Shore Drive. And what affects South Shore Drive is going to affect South Shore.
Exactly. I understand that. I get all the linkage, but again, I don't make the rules. The rules aren't made here in Chicago.
That's why I say, am I
they're made
talking
in
to the
DC.
right people? But she right.
And we just follow them.
But you know what? When you have all of these layers of bureaucracy, people are coming here pleading for their lives. This is what property, this is what this country is about, owning property.
Right.
And people are coming here begging for help, and they're getting the boomerang. Oh, well, you know, we would help you, but you know, this is what you signed up for. That doesn't sound like help. It sounds like all of these different organizations are in decision-making capacity, that they should be having their heads buried together, figuring out a resolution that's going to help the lakefront, the city of Chicago, and all of these other agencies should have enough money between them to figure this problem out without bouncing it back to the people who are asking for power.
Right, I understand what you're saying, and rest assured that we are working very closely with CDOT and the Chicago Park District, but again, there's only so much we can do at our level. You know, if you want action, you want answers, you need to take it up higher to those people who are making those decisions.
So why are we even talking to you at all? Why do
We shall do that.
This is like a waste of time. I mean, I'm looking out of here.
So that's a great point you just made. So our Congresswoman, Robin Kelly, she had people here, but they had to leave. You guys come to me for everything. We need to start going to the other elected officials that have other jurisdictions. We will talk with Congressman Kelly a lot. I will continue to coordinate efforts so we can get her, and you can have these, address these kind of concerns with her, as well as our Cook County commissioners. We had our state rep here. So we're going to continue, I'm going to continue to get the elected officials together, so they can hear what's going on and go back to the federal government and ask for this money. The Army Corps of Engineers, she and the rest of the country, those are the ones that can put the money in place so they can do what they need to do. And we've already started to activate that.
It sounds, I listen to my neighbors, it sounds like we need to have some emergency meetings, something taking place, because I'm sure people who can make moves and make decisions must not know what's going on or the extent of the disasters about to take place. I think all of us want to hear that next week at 5 o'clock is going to be a meeting someplace where people are coming and doing something instead of us right now. We are no different than when we started. I don't see us being any better than we started today.
But this was the first step. We've never had a meeting on the South Side to discuss this, so this was the first step. This is not the last. We are already in the process of 40 meetings after the holidays. This is not going to be the last meeting. But what you guys did today, they hurt us. A lot of these issues have not even been brought up before. A lot of them has, now it's reiterated. So don't look at this as, you know, we came, nothing is being done. Not going to be the case, guys. I'm going to stay on it. I'm working with the state rep. I need to work more with the congressperson. But once again, just like you guys see me, you need to see the other elected officials. Okay?
Just one other point. There's one other member that you all don't have here, that maybe you haven't considered, but maybe you should, and that's CDOT, IDOT, and the federal government. South Shore Drive, if we keep referring to it, that's US 41. That's also the commuter route from Indiana to downtown. Now, I don't know if things for all of you players on South Lakeshore Drive, North Lakeshore Drive, that which I used to call the outer drive. But whoever's paying for that should maybe look at part of what we're saying is a problem here, because as the water comes up and runs down our side streets, like 73rd Street, it runs to South Shore Drive. It sits there. If it's going to freeze, if it's cold, on your major commuter route. You have 74th Street, the exact same situation. You have 75th Street, where you've already acknowledged that, well, we put some barriers there. Here's the barriers right here. Waves are breaking up here. If you look, and we're right at 75th. You go right around the corner here, you'll see sand from the middle of this building all the way back to the lake. That sand came 2 days ago, 3 days. Sorry. That sand came 2 days ago, 3 days ago, when we had the last nor'wester come through here. Anytime there's a nor'easter or nor'wester, this area is going to flood. For the first time in the city of Malice, we have a problem at 67th and South Shore. Again, that's US 41. That's city money, CDOT, but they don't want to claim it. That's IDOT.
They ain't gonna say nothing to the ones buildings in the water.
That's not our responsibility, that's the city's responsibility.
That's what they say.
But it says US 41 on the signs. It's a designated US highway. So that means federal funds. That means that you, as a part of the engineering part of the city, should be able to go to the federal government. I don't mind us going to Kelly. I think that we should be all over Raleigh about getting funding for this. But the city, who needs the funding in order not to shut down the drive, in order not to block your Indiana commuters from being able to get into the city to go to work, you need to be able to go and ask for hundreds of millions, not $200,000 to get the report done that nobody seems to want to pass a piece of legislation on. But we need for you to pull in all of the partners. So look at the collective picture that we've given you. We don't know the ins and outs. Everybody says, that's not us, that's not us, that's not my responsibility. We don't do that. Somebody does something, or nobody does anything. And that's why we're here. I wish I had that. Thank you.
So, my name is Ann Sheehan. I'm Deputy Mayor for the City of Chicago, and I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening. I want to assure everyone that we hear all of your concerns, and we're taking this very seriously. We've been meeting with all of our stakeholders that are here regularly since this summer. We briefed Mayor Lightfoot as early as this morning as to what's going on, and she wants to make sure, to your point, that we're not just coming up with Band-Aid solutions of Jersey barrier and sandbags, which frankly are no match for some of these winter storms. And so we're working regularly with our stakeholders, but to your point, we really need to bring all levels of government together to figure out what resources are available to solve this. And the mayor is insistent that we come up with a long-term solution, and so that we're not dealing with these issues once every decade or however frequently this happens, because frankly, It only takes a few storms to really damage our properties. And so we hear you. We're working with Alderman Mitchell, who has been a really great advocate for your community. And we're looking forward to being back here and talking to you regularly on our updates. And as this evolves, we're going to be bringing solutions to you. So thank you for being here.
We just want you to treat us like you treat the people on the north side.
On the North Shore.
And I'm just moving into this area. So I'm not really,
all of this is amazing how you all have allowed this to deteriorate and act like this is something new that's got to be surveyed.
Like I said, this summer, as soon as we were briefed on this, the administration was briefed, we spent the summer or the fall doing Jersey.
I heard 1987.
I hear you. I hear you. And we're working on a long-term solution, as I mentioned.
Well, what's going to happen to the people right now in the next week?
This is hazard and peril. Okay? You all are toying with people's lives. You've known about this for years, and you've done nothing. But I'm looking at all these cranes downtown, and I'm looking at all this tip money, with all these cranes downtown, and this new lakefront, and the new.
Like I said,
You all are amazing.
We're working, and we will be coming up with a long-term plan that will be presented.
We don't have long-term.
I understand that.
I don't think you do.
So I got my marching orders that we want because a lot of the funding is going to come from the federal level. We're going to be working with all stakeholders in one room for the policymakers, the legislators, the state reps, congressmen, county, and our state senators. So that is the next thing that our office will be working on. We got all the frustrations. I'm glad, the city was able to hear today. Thank you for voicing, but this is not the last step. This is absolutely the first step. Okay? We will be coming back. Things will be moving. I'm working very closely with everybody up here, so we got to come up with solutions. So stay with us. I don't know if someone want to ask questions.
Just one question as we leave. So I'm guessing our next step for action would be maybe to have a smaller meeting convened by you, because you would be the person to get to Ms. Sheehan the next steps. I think the city administration is going to guide us as to how we're going to interface with everybody else. But I think Sharon's point and Mary's point kind of summed up everything. 18 miles is not a lot in the scheme of the world, but it's all connected. And whether the lake is in front of private property or public property, if we build a breakwater over here and a breakwater over here and not one here, the lake is swallowing up our city. So to say, well, we shouldn't put it here because it's in front of private property is like the volcano example that Julia gave. It doesn't make any sense. The lakefront as 18 miles needs to be protected because it doesn't really matter. It's all our city. And that's the part I don't understand. We need a breakwater from the Cultural Center to 75th Street and wherever else. I'm not an engineer, but if the breakwater's out there, everybody's protected, including Lakeshore Drive, South Shore Drive, and every other street. So that's where we go next.
I have a plea for you. You're all of you very nicely saying, I hear you, and then you're saying there's a limit of what I can do because the rules are here. But you are hearing this, and if you are hearing this, please speak to your bosses, the people ahead of you. look at the rules you're working under, challenge them as well. That's the way things work. We're going to work, but we need you to work too, so thank you.
Last but not least, my name is Kathy Crawford, and I thank you guys for coming out and taking our questions and our comments, but I have a very funny one. We can build a wall to keep out the Mexicans, but we cannot build a wall a couple feet to secure the properties. Coming here this evening, all I can say I walk away with is an understanding that Lake Michigan has gentrificated and we're under them. So at this point I'm asking the people involved, and we're not beating up on you guys because I'm sure this has been going on for a long time. I remember in '85 I was in Canada and saw on the TV my car parked in Lakeshore in front of South Shore Drive because we have the flooding. We knew it was coming, nothing was done about it, and we're not beating up because you guys were very young, so there are much more people that was before you guys to do this. So now we're asking for help. That's all this is about. Lakeshore Drive, the lake from the water, it's gentrification, it's coming, it's taking us in, it's taking us away. That's all I have to say. It's very dangerous. If we drive along Lara Vera by the hospital there, it's less than 2 inches flowing over the back. So thank you guys for coming out and listening to us. Thank you.
So guys, once again, this is only the first step. We have the gymnasium until 8 o'clock. Powell was gracious enough to let us use it. This is, once again, this is the first step. I have my marching orders. Everybody up there have their marching orders. Myself and Deputy Mayor, we already eyeing each other, like, okay. So keep working with us, guys. Keep working with us. Call my office if you have additional questions, like you always do, and then we're going to continue moving forward. Thank you all for coming out.